Hi, welcome to In the Garden. My name is Eleni, and I'm a Master Gardener intern, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's In the Garden. We have two Master Gardener experts joining us. One is Dorothy Chow, who also works with the Therapeutic Horticulture Program, and Robin Hammer, who is the coordinator of Close Encounters with Agriculture. Master Gardeners are trained volunteers through the University of Maryland Extension Program who help citizens develop safe, effective, and sustainable healthy gardens, landscapes, and communities through a variety of educational programs and just different activities, including a speakers bureau, demonstration gardens, youth gardening programs, plant clinics, which you may have seen at your local library, the therapeutic horticulture, and various special events. And like today's are in the garden. On the first and third Thursdays from 2 to 4, the Montgomery County Master Gardeners hosts plant sales at the Germantown campus of Montgomery College, and who knows what you can find there. So it's always fun to just kind of pop in. Before we begin today's program, I wanted to let you know that you are welcome to submit questions during the program. You just go to the comments section on the Facebook page, and during the live broadcast, someone is monitoring it, and we will get to these questions because we save time at the end for it. And if you think of a question after the program, you can always email it to inthegarden mcmg@gmail.com. Again, that's in the garden with mcmg, all run together, at gmail.com. And do include photos when you do that. If you prefer, you can make a phone call, 301-590-2842, and leave a voicemail, and if possible, include your email so somebody can respond to you. So today's program is going to begin with a discussion about educational opportunities with garden clubs. And so I'm going to turn it over to Robin.
Thank you, lady. I'm glad to be with you all today. I know we gardeners are all lifelong learners. We learn something new with every plant, it seems, every year, every season. We get surprises, and often you all send questions in. You have questions, and we appreciate that. We try to answer them. One of the things we thought would be helpful for everybody was to provide you with some really helpful, practical, and interesting educational resources. There are so many things available to us. Some things are available live in person now, some Zoom, some are local, some are national, international even. There's a lot that's out there. So I've created just a template of a sheet, of a list, and it'll be available on our Master Gardener website. We will update it. We look forward to you sending in further suggestions of courses you've taken or educational opportunities you know about. Send them in to us, you know where, because we want to share this information. Again, we're all lifelong learners. I'm going to just go through the list. I'm not going to go through all of the courses, but I will give you a few that are happening locally now. We've got a great resource in Montgomery College for those of us in this area. I mean, I know community colleges everywhere are touted with all the education and knowledge. There are so many courses available that go from landscaping, that go from sustainable agriculture, all sorts of things. Just this fall, we've got a long list of courses we can all take. And that the information for that, all of that is, I'm on this list. I've got all the websites. You can get all that. We'll also have a sheet of the fall courses. So just know that there are all different ones. They're available for you, different levels. You can do integrated pest management. There's a whole bunch of things. And the convenience can't be beat. Honestly, it's a great resource to have right there. A little further afield, but also in our area, are the great resource of the United States National Arboretum. If you haven't been down lately, I know they were closed during the pandemic for a while. It's open. The grounds are beautiful. The building hosts many courses, all different kinds, forest bathing to Ikebana to we're going to be having courses coming up I'll tell you more about. total educational opportunity. It's a science facility. It's part of, as you can see, the National Arboretum and the USDA, Department of Agriculture, run this together, and it is a scientific resource, and it is, but all the courses aren't for those who are a little nervous about scientific. There's stuff for everyone there. The U.S. Botanic Garden, don't worry about the parking, you can metro and walk, has a great list of courses. They've had things from yoga to designing to all sorts of real hands-on workshops and courses. And again, all of these sites are updated all the time, frequently, and give great information. There's great general information, and there's courses for kids on there too, and families. There's a lot going on. Specifically, I know a lot about the courses at National Garden Clubs. The website is here, gardenclub.org. There are educational opportunities and courses in 4 big areas: environmental, gardening, landscape design, and flower show school. Oh my God, do you all want to become judges? I hope so, flower show judges. But what goes on in that course? Horticulture, design, there's hands-on things going on all the time. There are workshops and all those courses that are available. I mean, you could be visiting family in New Jersey or in New Mexico. There are courses that are all over that you can all be a part of. And they're open, totally open to the public. You don't have to be, join or be a member. They are open and accessible to everyone. In our immediate area, our National Capital Area Garden Clubs. Again, we're speaking to from Montgomery County Master Gardeners here, so I can tell you specifically, Montgomery County is hosting a few different courses coming up this fall, so they're really wonderful and convenient. We are doing a symposium in Montgomery County at the end of September, very beginning of October. There will be design in there, and there will also be some horticultural topics, including Ikebana and chrysanthemums. The folks teaching, the instructors and the courses are nationally certified and are really full of wonderful detail. There's a lot of work that goes into them. There's a lot that you can experience, work on, share. Those courses are, if you do both days, 2 days. If not, it's 1 day for the horticulture course. I think they're wonderful. And again, it's right here in Montgomery County. The landscape design, our school that for landscape design will be taught this year at the Arboretum in the middle of October. I don't think there's a nicer place to be in the middle of October than the Arboretum. So I think you will enjoy that course. And again, you can go for 1 day or both days. The courses are taught by experts in the field. And again, this is all run nationally. So it's really a well-done course. And then on Zoom, we have environmental school, October 18th and 19th. So 2 evenings, and 2 evenings the following week, the 25th and 26th of October. All available. If you're working, it's convenient to do these in the evening from home. You can sit back, have dinner and a drink, and watch and learn. Amazing courses. I've also looked and checked. There are a lot of courses Montgomery County Parks offer in different locations. In our area, of course, there's Brookside. There's a lot of courses that are offered. And I think, just take a look at the website. Again, all of these websites are updated frequently with all kinds of information. You can see many different kinds of courses, including, as I suggested before, courses for kids. Now, we've got with us today our friend Dorothy Shao, who's got a little more information on Ikebana, and I wanted her to take a moment or two, and tell us more about the Ikebana International courses that are offered. Dorothy?
Thank you, Robin. So happy to be here with you today and share with you some information about Ikebana. Ikebana is a Japanese word, and it is a combination of 2 Japanese words, Iki, which means to live, and Bana, which means flowers. It's a form of flower arranging with rules that are governed by which school you're in, and there are over 2,000 schools of Ikebana that you can choose from. Flowers and various plants parts. This includes the branches, the leaves, the grass, moss, fruits, vegetables, and all phases of the plant life cycles are used in these arrangements. And they're used through all seasons of the year, from dried grasses back in the fall to the fresh blossoms in the spring. They're used to symbolize harmony, peace, and beauty. It's really an art form. And for those who love plants, and it's a way of bringing the garden and nature into our lives. I'm showing you a few arrangements that have been made by our Ikebana students and teachers that you can look. They show a variety of the different schools. If you want any more information about Ikebana, you can contact Ikebana International. Thank you, and I hope you find it of the much pleasure as I have from doing it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dorothy. I think that it's so helpful, to know that we have so many gardeners who both love digging in the dirt and love arranging some of the plants, different kinds of plants, woody plants, flowering plants. It's wonderful to have the different artistic outputs, outlooks, and other adventures that we can take. And I think Ikebana is so exciting, and I know it's wonderful. And there's so many available courses in our area, along with the design and flower show schools that teach design and workshops that teach design. It's great these courses are available to us. And I hope you take a look at this list. If you have suggestions, send them in. We'll add them to the list. We'll update it. And we want to make it that everyone join us in this lifelong educational pursuit. Thanks. Back to you, Eleni.
Thank you, Robin. Lots of interesting information. And Ikebana is just such an amazing, thing to do. I took a couple of classes myself, and I just remember at one point being told to leave space so a bird could fly through it. I mean, it was just a very different aesthetic than I personally was raised with, but I loved it. Anyway, please remember, if you're watching and you have a question about anything that anyone has mentioned, or a different question, please feel free to go to the comments section and send it in. We'll save time at the end. And let's see, I'm going to keep moving on. We have gotten a lot of really interesting questions this past couple of weeks, and one came in about milkweed seedlings, and Ryan wrote, I have received some milkweed seedlings from the DTSS Farmers Market, I guess that's downtown Silver Spring, and was wondering if you have any advice on where and when to try to transplant. They're growing in a small cup that he received a few weeks ago, and they're about 3 to 4 inches high. He'd like to place them somewhere in the yard, but also doesn't want to put them out too early in high heat. Robin, do you have any thoughts about this?
I do, and I love that you got these locally in Silver Spring. I'm right now speaking to you from Massachusetts, and I've got milkweed growing all over, and I have been known to pull over on the side of the road carefully and try to get some that I thought would be interesting. Ryan, do you know what species of milkweed you received? Knowing that species will help determine soil conditions and amount of sunlight the plants need. I also don't know exactly when you wrote this in, so I'm not sure. We're now in early July. It's hot, so I think you go forward and here I can give you some information in general about milkweed that'll help you. 3 common milkweed species in Maryland: butterfly milkweed, Asclepias tuberosa, common milkweed, Asclepias syriaca, and swamp milkweed, Asclepias incarnata. Butterfly milkweed, I can say the English ones perfectly, requires well-drained site, such as a slope, and full sun, at least 6 hours of sunlight per day. It'll grow to a height of 1 to 3 feet and blooms in spring and summer. The common milkweed also requires well-drained site and full sun. It grows a little higher, 3 to 5 feet, and also blooms in summer. Swamp milkweed requires moist soil, we've had a little bit of that lately, and full sun to partial shade. It grows to a height of 3 to 5 feet also and blooms in summer and fall. Butterfly milkweed ideally should be planted in fall. We've got it now. If you have it, try it. It'll give it enough time to become established before it blooms. Common milkweed and swamp milkweed ideally should be planted in the spring for the same reason, but planting now during the summer is fine. Just be aware that plants may not flower until next year. It's a little difficult, and it may be a little difficult to transplant the milkweed once it's established, and it may spread very easily. I can tell you it does. So try to be certain of where you're planting it. That location is important. And to make sure you've got the spacing right, you can go to the extension services. I know we've got some in Maryland, Missouri, there's all over. You just put that in and add the word spread, milkweed and spread, and find out, and keep watering it well. One thing we want to make sure you remember is, or everyone knows, and milkweed attracts many pollinators in addition to monarch butterflies. There is a lot of information. There is a lot of research out there, and send us more pictures. Show us how you do. Thanks.
Thanks. That sounds interesting. It sounds like you might have to give a little TLC planting it now, being July, but we'll see. We had several questions. I think Casey, Erica, and Sheila all wrote in about persistent weeds, particularly weeds that were vining, some with arrowhead shaped leaves, some that have flowers, and folks are trying to identify what these vines and weeds are, and also how to eradicate them. Again, Robin, you have any thoughts about
I think I'm into the weeds this time. I've got to tell you that this is Erica, I believe, sent in these photos. Erica, these are great. And everybody, again, asking questions is wonderful. Sending in pictures, phenomenal. Great way for us all to learn together, and for us giving you answers to tell you, and the researchers to tell you more about what we're seeing. You've got some different weeds here. You've got wild grape. The first three photos look like wild grape, and the last three photos are bindweed. Wild grape, woody deciduous vines, just like cultivated grapes, with a voracious growth habit. That's code for, wow, it will be wild. Some can reach up to 50 feet in length. They also have tenacious woody root systems that can persist for years. One reason why some people refer to wild grapes as weeds. Those tendrils of the wild grapes anchor onto branches or other surfaces, any surfaces. I've seen them, I think some of your pictures, fences all over. The bark, and there'll be bark, a gray-brown, and it looks a little shredded. They grow high and thick, much more so than the cultivated grapes. And another reason they're wild grape weeds, they're unchecked and they can easily overtake other plant species. I think the easiest way to control it or kill them is just dig out the entire stump. That is easier said than done. I know, I've seen it. I've seen it years ago. My son did this with his school as a community service project. He was at Wood End over in Montgomery County, and first month they went, they pulled it all up. The next month they came back and they said, oh my God, we got rid of all of that. How did it get back? So be prepared, it may come back. Non-chemical methods are always preferred in our gardens. Really smothering those anchors with newspaper or with grass or other clippings. Digging and pulling is what you'll be doing. Bindweed.
I was just going to say, it's often so much easier to do the digging right after a really heavy rainstorm.
Oh yeah, loosen it up. That's a great point. I think that's true, and it's also, sometimes when I see them and I'm doing something else, like say I'm getting flowers, I just clip and come back, because dead is easier to pull out, or part dead, than when they're just crazy wild. But you're right, there's nothing like doing that on a hot sunny day to be miserable. The bindweed plants grow from rhizomes or underground storage structures that promote the spread of the weed. They are also hardy and tenacious, and they're opportunistic weeds that get into cracks and crevices and are nearly impossible to remove. I'm glad they're pretty, because boy, oh boy, they are hard. Morning glory seeds, bindweeds are a kind of a plant. I mean, some people want to see that, some people don't. Really, I know people have said a weed is just a plant growing in a place you don't want it. I would pull up whatever you don't want and know that you're going to be pulling up some more. There is so much written on these vines. Sometimes people want them to be growing because they're, maybe obliterating something they don't want to see. So remember, again, it's just a weed is something a plant you don't want in a place you don't want it. If you like them and you like what they're doing, let it go. If not, be prepared to pull and dig.
Well, thanks, Robin. Our next question came from Sheila, and she wanted to know what's happening to my black-eyed Susans. And our researchers, looked at the picture, and there were a few different thoughts about it. One thought was that it looked like it could just be miscellaneous caterpillars chomping away, kind of the circle of life. They need their food, or four-lined plant bugs. But the consensus was, if there's something if the plant seems healthy in essence, and a couple of the leaves are bad, clip those off and just let it be. It will probably be fine. And there's nothing really to worry about. I think that was, just what everybody thought.
Eleni, you know what? It might be nice if this questioner could send in pictures, in a couple of weeks and see what happens. The flowers may come out all right.
That's a great idea. Sheila, if you're watching, send us some pictures and tell us how things turned out. Our next question is from Jeannie, and she wanted to know what happened to my knockout roses. So Dorothy, would you be able to take this one?
Sure. It's really, if you look at this photo, it's really hard to tell that this plant is in fact a knockout rose, because the plant does not look very well and I suspect has been sick for a while. Knockout roses were originally devised to be disease resistant. However, this knockout rose has a disease called rose rosette disease, and it is a devastating disease of roses. It's caused by a virus that's carried by a tiny, tiny mite that's so small you can't see it. The mite is carried by the wind to the plant, where it feeds on the tender saps of the roses and then infects the plant. An uninfected mite can feed on an infected plant and get infected and then be blown by the wind to another part of the plant or to another rose bush next to it and infect that plant. So it's quite infectious. The mite itself is called a vector. It carries the virus to the other plants. So humans can also be a vector when they prune and graft plants. So you have to be careful. Mites cause their damage by eating the top of the new growth of the knockout roses and cause an abnormal growth called a witch's broom. And I think we have a picture of that now. The rose tries to respond when its top gets cut off and develops this growth on the side. And it's aptly called the witch's broom. In addition to this, you can also see excessive thorniness, some enlarged canes, and some malformed leaves and flowers on the roses. But the witch's broom is really quite diagnostic of this on knockout roses. Unfortunately, there are no known treatments for this virus, and every rose cultivar is susceptible to disease. This includes tea roses and miniature roses. And also, even sadly, the plant needs to be removed and destroyed. And when you destroy it, since the virus is so contagious, you have to put the rose bush or any pruning materials that you might have from a rose into a plastic bag and throw it in the trash. You must not compost the parts of the plant or the plant itself. It should be thrown in a trash to protect not only your roses, but your neighbor's roses. So anyway, it's called the rosette disease, and the plant needs to be destroyed. Sorry.
Oh, that sounds tragic, especially if you have several of them, several rose bushes nearby. It sounds like they could all get the virus. Is that that?
Yes, it's carried by the wind by the mite. It's a vector, and the mite is what carries the virus that causes the disease. And we know how viruses travel.
Yes. Our next question is about a pig nut hickory. And this question, as you can see in the photo, this person is asking, what is wrong with my hickory? Or is it something that he needs to worry about? And the short answer is no, you don't need to worry about it. It appears to be phylloxera, which is similar to an aphid. And this particular critter is so well adapted to its host, it's like only on the pig nut hickory. But that's really not so bad, and it's not life-threatening. It's my understanding that it's only one generation a year, so I wouldn't worry about it. I think that that's just, again, circle of life. I'm getting circle of life questions, so that's good for me. Let's see. Our next question comes in from Tim. And he sent some pictures in about his oaks. And he wanted to know why the tips of his oaks were dying and falling. And he wanted to know if that was a serious problem. Dorothy, I think you're going to field this one, right?
Right. This is a picture of a small oak twig with dead leaves that has died and fallen off. And he's picked it up and looked up at his oak tree and noticed there are other little twigs on his tree that look the same, and he's worried about it. So this is caused by, most likely, cicada damage. We all remember Brood 10, the 17-year-old cicada from last summer. However, there are different varietals and broods of cicadas, and most of them have 2 to 5 year cycles. So we can expect to see some kind of cicada damage every year. The damage is caused when the female cicada lays its eggs. After she mates, the female cuts a slit in the twig and deposits her eggs. She can deposit up to 20 eggs in this little nest, and then she can go to another twig and deposit more eggs. So that's why there are so many cicadas. Now, what happens is that the eggs hatch, the nymphs fall to the ground where they dig in, where they find a place to develop, and over their determined life cycle then will emerge at that time as full-blown cicadas. But what happens to that twig where the bark has been split by the female cicada? Well, it can heal with a scar that's usually on the under portion of the twig. But what happens when it interferes with the bark, the sap and the nutrients can't get to that tip of the oak tree, that little twig. So what happens is then the leaves die off. So that's why you see all those leaves dead to the tip. And then the wood itself becomes brittle and it collapses. So then the oak can kind of hang back like this, and that's called flagging. It's like waving itself until a strong wind blows and then it falls to the ground, or you prune it and cut it off. But it really doesn't cause any damage. If it's a large tree, it really won't cause any damage to the tree, and the tree will do fine. If it's a smaller new tree, then the cicadas can cause significant damage. And in fact, we master gardeners were taught to cover 2 or 3 year old trees with bird nesting last summer to protect those trees from the cicadas. In general, it's not a serious disease for trees, and you don't really need to worry about it. If you want to go prune it, don't hurt yourself. If it's a large tree, don't try to prune them, they'll fall off. There was a great article by Adrian Higgins, who is the garden editor for the Washington Post in August of 21. And it was titled, "The Cicadas Are Gone, but They Left Their Mark on Trees." So if you're interested, you can look that article up in the archives of the Washington Post, and it gives you some idea of how to deal with it. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about it, but I noticed that in my yard, I have oak trees, and I keep having branches, and I did notice holes in the yard. So I guess the cicadas have been popping up. Who knows?
If you look carefully at that twig, you can actually look at the scar that the cicada has created at the bottom of the twig if you pick it up.
Oh, I'm going to have to go out and do that after this. Our next question was from Sue, and she was writing about her kale and rutabaga. She said her plants have bugs and holes in them, and she wanted to use row covers to protect the plants, and wanting to know how she could do that. And here's the thing. The plant covers, which I think they're just a variety of them that you can see. Depending on what kind of plant you have, you could have short ones or tall ones. You might have to have different structures. You can find them online or build them yourself. But at this time of year, if your plants are already growing, it might be a little late to protect those. You should use the row covers right after you plant the plants, but maybe for your next crop, you could use them. Do you agree with that, Robin?
I think that would be fine. I think that's a great idea, and I think that would be fine.
Okay, just checking. And our next question comes, I'm not sure who it comes from, but it's on red buds. And the question is, what is causing the yellow spots and holes on my red bud? Do I need to manage it? Robin, can I turn that over to you?
Yeah, I'm going to look at those pictures. I'm actually looking in a different place right now. I think I'm catching up to where you are now. How many pictures do we have on this? Can you see them?
I think that, our viewers can see them.
Right. Can you? Okay. I'm seeing, I guess the holes, we're looking at front and back, everybody, of holes on these red buds. It's unfortunate. Well, it's unfortunate we're looking at the red buds now and not in the beautiful spring when they first start. I think these are fungal leaf spots. At the part we're looking at now, the leaf spots are brown, circular to angular. They're tiny, 1/8 to 1/4. I don't even think they're that big of an inch, with a little halo. Yes, a premature leaf defoliation may occur. I don't think you can worry about it too much or do anything about it right now. This is late in the season for them, and I think just keep making sure the tree is taken care of and watering regularly. And we've got information on our website for our wonderful local red buds. So I think that's where you should look. But I think there's not much more, nothing you can do. Send in pictures when it's in flower. I'd love to see how it looks.
That's sweet. Thank you for that. Margaret sent in a question that she thought were ground beetles. She said, I'm sending you some pictures of a bug. Not sure what it is, but I've seen it in my yard. I want to know if it's a destructive bug or a beneficial one, and if destructive, how to treat it. So Dorothy, can you tell us what you found out?
Sure. So I'm really not an entomologist, but we have a whole group of master gardeners that really have specialty in pest control and insects, and they assisted me in identifying Nut as a June beetle. Now, the June beetle is a common name for a group of beetles called the scarab, scarab, scarab beetles. They appear around June across most of the United States. There's a very common beetle. Some of you may know the scarab beetle from Egyptian charms and artifacts. It's a very, very old beetle. Other common names include the May beetle or sometimes the July beetle, but usually you'll see it under June beetle. You have the adult form that can cause damage and the larvae form that cause damage. The adult form feeds on leaves and flowers of many, many trees and shrubs. They can also attack vegetables, lettuce, raspberries, strawberries, potatoes, and many garden plants. They can cause significant damage when in large numbers. The beetles are nocturnal, so at night you can see them coming and flying to the light. The larvae are called white grubs. They live in the soil and they feed on the roots of grasses and other plants. The grubs can be really pests in pastures, nurseries, your garden, and in golf courses. If you look immediately below the grass surface, like pick up a piece of grass, grass has been damaged or is growing poorly, you can actually see the grubs curled up in a little comma position. You can actually see the grubs. So these when the larvae eat the roots of the small plants, suddenly the plants might start to wilt or not grow well, or may shed their leaves prematurely. So, and if the plants are in rows, like in a vegetable garden, it'll eat one plant and then it'll move to the next one and the next one and the next one. You can actually see the grubs as they
relocate
and find more food sources. They'll feed underground for 3 to 4 years before changing into adult beetles. Most and many ground beetles are beneficial, and we think of beetles as our friends, but this particular one is not our friend. However, there are so many of them, and they have so many overlapping generations that they're impossible to treat. So the bad news is that's what it is, and there's no effective treatment. I'm sorry. Now, when I looked up, so that's for the June beetle, but when I looked up the June beetle, I also found that the Japanese beetle is a scarab beetle. And here's a photograph. You have the June beetle on the left and the Japanese beetle on the right. It's a beautiful color. It's an iridescent copper colored with a green thorax and head. But it's the Japanese beetle. It's not destructive in Japan because it has natural predators, but it is in North America and in Europe. It's a pest. The adult beetles, like the June beetle, eats leaves and the fruits, and the larvae eat the roots. The plants eaten by the Japanese beetle is so long, but roses, beans, corn, peas, okra, strawberries, peppers, plum, pear, peach, crepe myrtle, birch, linden trees. Anyway, because the Japanese beetle is so destructive, people have been devising ways to try to treat them. They've developed these traps. They're biological controls where they spray the areas with a bacterium that causes a disease in the Japanese beetle called the milky spore disease. And you can cover your plants with row covers. However, that creates other problems. And there's a spray, a kaolin spray, which is a mineral clay that has been used for centuries to discourage the beetles from landing on those plants. Anyway, I thought it would be interesting to add the Japanese beetle to that. It was a huge problem many years ago, but I have not seen many in my garden recently. So
that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Eleni, we also have a question from Tim. If Bev, our producer, can get the...
I was going to just ask Bev if she had any questions that were coming in.
Well, we have this question that was about, cherry trees. And at this time of the summer, you might be experiencing in the mulch around the trees something called slime mold, which is not gorgeous, sometimes known as, the yellow one is sometimes known as SpongeBob SquarePants mold. The other one is commonly referred to as dog vomit, honestly. They're not pretty. They are slime molds that come up in the mulch. I don't know, Bev, do we have the picture up? If you can see it, if you know what it looks like. People are always asking, and I know this writer asked us, what's going on and what will it do to my tree? And the rains are coming from the summer, and what do I do? It's an organism that is going to keep on growing. It's like any other. It's not going to harm the tree. It looks awful. You can dig it up. You can wash it with water, heavy spray, and kind of shovel it away, toss it out. One thing to note, keep the mulch away from the base of that cherry tree. Don't have it touch, a little bit away. It needs, like we said before, light and air, some breathing space. They are always there, these molds, but they colonize, and they come this lovely, disgusting texture color as the weather changes. So they're there, but you can get rid of it. And the color changes. Don't worry, it's not going to hurt the tree. The mulch on the tree hurts the tree the most. So remember, keep that mulch away. And I know we just had heavy rains here and all the mulch moved. Good time to take a little walk around and see if you need to do any spacing and keeping that stuff clean. But don't just toss it out and get rid of it. It's really more cosmetic than anything else.
Okay, thank you, Robin. So I'm going to just touch base with Bev to see if there were any other questions that may have come through. All right, thank you very much, Bev. So I just want to let everybody know that to mark their calendar for the next In the Garden, which is going to be Tuesday, July 19th at noon. And if you have a question that you want to submit that you would like the next team of experts to address, please send it in by Tuesday, July 12th at 6 p.m. and email it to inthegardenmcmg@gmail.com. Again, it's inthegarden with mcmg@gmail.com, or call 301-590-2842 and leave a voicemail, and please include your email if possible. And if you email us, include photographs. It helps in trying to identify what the issue might be, because it could be any number of things. And, detail is good. What time of day you notice something, if it's the same throughout the entire plant or just in one area. It's always helpful information. And we'll make every effort to answer the question on the next In the Garden. And if not, then someone will respond to you directly. Let's see. Our next program is going to feature Sherry Marshall, who is going to talk about the Montgomery County Master Gardener Demo Garden at the Montgomery County Fairgrounds in Gaithersburg. And so just if you think of any questions that you might have, again, email them to us by July 12th. And thanks to Steve Dubik, who's with the University of Maryland, Montgomery County Extension Program, Mary Barnhart, who's a Master Gardener and the lead on In the Garden, our experts, Robin and Dorothy, and to the behind-the-scenes researchers this week, Maher, Sheila, Deborah, Ronnie, Jeannie, and Mary. We couldn't do this without you. And of course, we couldn't do it without our viewers and the questions you guys send in. So thanks for joining us today, and send in your questions. See you again soon. Bye-bye.